Right, so let's look at the loops then. Okay, in Java. So we want to talk about 4.2. So there's some like 3 class exercises. The first one want you to print out the first 100 odd numbers. Alright, so we now gonna come back to, we're going to write this in the Android apps, okay, as extra credits. Okay, so let's look at how to do that, right? So we talk about how to put a plugin into IntelliJ already, correct? Like to install the SDK manager, we need the SDK manager for Android.
Is this recording? Something like that.
So now I'm going to start to say, okay, let's make let's name the application. So Math apps, okay. So that's the version of the Android, right, that we want to run on. Last time what version that I use is your phone, right? Is it 24/7, right? NuGet. So make sure you pick the same SDK that you have on your phone. This can run on it, live version, NuGet. So we gotta do an empty activity. So now it's going to create a project. So we talked about Gradle last time too. Gradle is pretty much just it's a code or the script, the language that you write. Like by default, this one will write a script for you to get the bundles of the dependencies for this project. Like if you look at, there's a Gradle, like build.gradle. Like last time we were talking about the basic one, right? So this is pretty much just wrote for you already, like dependencies and the repositories. All right, so these are all the Gradle files that use, like this one pretty much just showing you we use the Android application, right, package, the version 26, and this is the minimum SDK version, and target SDK is 26. ID of the applications. So build types, the release. So when you have build, that means you create this to deploy and they have to release. Like when you want to enable minifying or not. Like now we didn't do that. So when you build, we pretty much just want to like get rid of things that not necessary to make sure the file is going to be a smaller size. So if you enable that, and these are the dependencies. Like you use any other jar file. Jar file is just like a zip files, right? In Java. Alright, so pretty much this project layout already built for you, right? We use Android. Now our focus is we're going to write a code under this package, right? And this is where the main is going to be. So this one is depending on the layout. Under REST layout and activity main. So this is the design. Like by default, it's create a hello world, right, for you as a text view. So we could use that, okay, to have an output for our, to print out the output for our program that we want to put like odd numbers, print out odd numbers. We can leave that hello world. Now what we gonna do, let's make a button. So we gonna drag and drop the button, and this button we could make it like underneath hello world. So to do that, we could switch back to the XML. This is XML file for that layout. So this text view just represent the text hello world here, right? It's just XML is a basic layer tag. You open text view and then you close. This is called inline, like slash. So that's represent that object with the text hello world. Like when you drag and drop, it just create this code for you. So I just drag and drop button, it's create a button code for me, right? So technically this UI pretty much make it simple, simplified for you, in terms of you don't have to write a code to show these images. Just like when we learned before, we had to write a code for that. This one just makes simplify it. And this configuration that we see is pretty much just going to, like Android have another program just read that XML and convert into Java code for you already, which you don't have to worry. So what you need to do is this, the layout constraint, right? That we see for hello world, we can see it's right in the middle, right? This showing the constraint like constant bottom to bottom of parent. Parent is pretty much just on the white screen here, right? So it's just to the left of the parent, to the right of the parent, and to the top of parent. That's why it's centered, right? So now let's say I want to move the button to be underneath the hello world, right? So if I want to use the same layout, okay, so I'm going to pretty much just type it, right? This is a text equals button. I could change the text here too, right? To say first 100 odd numbers, something like that, right? So to print out first 100 odd numbers, we click. So Android layout, okay, wrap content. So this is the ID. So now ID pretty much where you go link into your Java code, you link to the ID. If I want to change a little bit the name, then I can refer to it like odd button. They know when I click this odd button, it's going to print out the odd numbers. So I need to keep the ID to text view too, right? Last time I show you from the view, you could set through here too, right? Odd button, that ID. That's another way. This one doesn't have ID, right? So this is like display, then I call display. So switch back, you see it's going to add the ID display for you, right? Android ID. So it's the same thing, right? Same thing, like you can type or you can just switch back to the design and go to properties and manual input that. Now let's talk about layout, right? So let's see, I'm gonna add the layout. So bottom to constant bottom to top of. So this says bottom to bottom of the parent, right? So let's see, I refer to the ID, another object, which is display. So you see it start to move, right? So the bottom of this object to the top of that, that's what it means, right? Technically we just actually want to do it top of that object, right, to the bottom of instead, right? There you go, we just bottom of the text view, right? Now we want to make sure it's centered, so we just need to, how do we do to make it centered? Layout, left, right, left to left of parent, and right layout constraint right to right of parent, right? Make it centered. So now we're pretty much done with the design. So once I click this, I wanted to print out the first 100 odd numbers. So what do? We go back to the code now. How do we refer to those two objects, the button and the display, right? ID I gave it, right? The hello world one and the button. How do I refer to that? R dot find view by ID, right? And then we can say R dot ID dot, what's the name of the ID again? Display, right? And this one will return, you have to know display is text view object, right? So we define text view as an object name display equals to, now we have to cast this, change the type, because by default it's returned an object. We change the type to text view. Now we have that object in your code. Like if I want to say display equals hello world or whatever message, I can just say display dot set text, right? And then you can just say hi class, right? Something like that. Once you run the program, it's going to say hi class. So Again, I might need your machine again to test. Okay, we can connect your phone, right? Like, or you can use emulator, but I didn't have the admin right to install, yeah, emulator on here. So we're gonna connect that and run. Okay, 1 second and show you. Just this wire. This is longer, not this one. Anyone has the cable for Android charger? Yeah? No? Not picking up, huh? I know we have it. Nope. So no one have the cable? Nope. Okay. I So now they're coming to install that. There we see a result. So while waiting for that, we're going to complete this code first. So now we understand how display work. It should have the high class, right? So the next step is we actually want to write a program to do the print out odd numbers, correct? So technically this is a string, right? So I can just say the output of the output and declare it as a string variables, right? Variable name output. And then technically if I can just put like all the odd numbers, right? First 100 odd numbers, right? That will work, which if I type it manually, it will display. But since we are smart now with the concept of loops, right? So we want to write a loop. So we said loop, we can say while, right? And how to use while, we need to initialize the I, like the counter, right? I equal to 0. And we say while I less than, we want first 100 numbers, so let's include 100. Or maybe, because I'm talking about if it's even, we have to have 100 too, right? Or no, because it's first 100, so less than 100. If we start from 0 to 100, that's 100, right? Say less than. And then we need to increment your I. And pretty much just put into the output. Correct? So what do we put? I. And then if you want to separate by spaces, then concatenating it. But now if we do this, it's going to print 100 numbers, not the odds. So how do we make the odds?
2 plus 1. That will print 100 numbers though. That'll just add them together.
This is concatenating, right?
Yeah, into
with a string.
But you're, oh.
It's not an int. So if an int, it will find the sum. So how do we get it odd? So odd mean it's going to increment every
2 numbers.
Every 2 numbers. So the first one you get 0. Right when I equal to 0 is 0. But odd's supposed to show 1. Correct? Like if the first one is 1, we can always plus 2, right? Because we can actually do I plus equals 2, right? Because it's going to be 1 and then 3, right? So that would do, right? And then we just change that to 1, right? Correct. We can test to print out.
What was the exact question again?
100 odd numbers, right?
Well, if it's the first, so the problem with this one is it's not the first 100 odd numbers, it's the first set of odd numbers up to 100.
Oh,
so
yeah.
effectively it would be half the numbers.
Let's review. Yeah, that's right.
So
What's
that's why the exact question.
first 100 odd numbers? Oh, so that's going to be only first 50 odd
Just
numbers.
giving every other number.
Right.
Even.
So how do we get the first 100 numbers then?
Well, you could do up to 200, since we know.
One way we can do up to 200.
It would be one.
Okay. That's one way, right?
Yeah.
That's one way we can just do like that. Now if I... Hi, thanks you. Yeah. Thank you for stopping by. See, I need to install this. I hit the wrong button. Okay.
This is the count of how many numbers.
Thank you. So, I think in my request, I have to make sure I say that for next time. Then you don't have to come here.
It's okay. We can come here and install it. It doesn't take that long, right? Finish.
Yeah, it shouldn't. Let's
Okay.
say, let's hit OK and see what happened. It should show the emulator of Android phone.
Uh-huh.
So when it shows 0, technically 0 is not you. Technically 0 is not show eyeballs.
Yeah, but we cannot do with all the student machine.
No.
Yeah, that's why I guess I need to put in there when I request
Yeah, at
for
beginning of
software.
semester, whatever you request is supposed to be installed already, but not for.
But this one, we have to run the program and install manually, which I'm not sure how.
Oh,
You see what I mean, right? Or
so
we have to find out how, but I'll find out.
yeah, so the student need to log in or something.
Yeah, because it's it's about the graphic card program.
Okay. I don't know how it's gonna work, but normally all the software is installed, but this doesn't look like it, right?
Yeah, this is it. That's what we want. Yeah, but
Okay.
the problem is, it has to install again once we
When?
run the emulator, like just now.
Okay.
Like our program is complete, already installed. We like it. It's only this emulator
Uh-huh.
that we had to manually put it again, like just now.
I see. But next time you don't need it for this machine,
more.
right?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, but with other, I don't know how it works.
For
I
the
mean,
other students.
yeah, for all of them, it's supposed to be done some
I'll
time
find
ago.
out. Maybe put the instruction beginning of the semester. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Appreciate that. All right, so we see the output. Like I said, it should not take long if you have the admin right, which you should on your own machine, right?
Yep.
You can technically at this point bring your laptop, right? Okay, because I don't think you can store that on your machine at the school here. And we got I haven't to concatenate to initialize, which.
Well, yeah, that first one.
So that makes sense, right? So simple, very simple and easy to write your Android app. You see that, and you get extra credits. Correct? So the new thing is just the layout that you need to learn. That's it, and I show you, right? And you link it back by 5U by ID. Now, we want to look at the second one. 100 even numbers. Now, we technically can do the same even number, just change this, right? But now I want to make it more interesting by maybe create like several buttons, right? Like this is a requirement for maybe 3 buttons, right? And get those 3 buttons out, right? For each of this. Okay. So let's understand how to program a button, right? We want to make sure that we click the button and it does that, right? Click the button. So first we have to be able to refer to the button, correct? So this is what odd button, right? So this is the Android button. So we can find view by ID or dot ID dot odd button. Now we got a button in here. Make sure you import the button, right? So we do IntelliJ, you just do Alt, Alt enter is import for you, right? Just click on the where you need to import and do whole Alt key and then hit enter. So Alt button. So this is the logic for Alt, correct? I don't want it to print out right away. I want it to wait until we hit and then print out, right? So meaning that you just need to surround this with this code, just like if it's true, just like if you surround, you have condition to make it true or false, then you do this. If it's not, then you don't do. That makes sense, right? Meaning that I have to surround with what? Something with a button, which I'm going to have the method called add. Now this is called action. They should have an action. I'm looking for the method that on, provide, on, edit, on, right? So let's check the method name. Okay. All right. Button on click, right? So we're looking for on click, set on click. So it's not add, so it's set on click listener, right? So now this is the method. So you need to know what does this method, what's the parameter type that it need, right? Whenever you learn the method, you need to understand that. On click listener. On click listener, view dot on click listener. Let's see what it's looking for. New view implements on click. So meaning, okay, let me explain this. So remember, normally we want to get if it is true, we do this, right? Let me put that code, snapshot of the code that we have earlier, right? So we said if this is, we put some condition to make it true or false, but we don't want it to always print, right? So the condition that we want to put is pretty much just the button on its click. Make sense? That's the condition on click right here. On click, it's going to do this instead, right? That's what I mean, right? On click. But this is just a syntax for that whole thing, right? Like the button is an object. You have to set the listener to it. What type of listener? The click listener. Because the button can be on click, the button can be on slice, on right, on whatever action. But this one we talk about on click. Then this one require to have the listener name on click listener. Okay, part of the view. Right, and this listener pretty much just say, hey, when it's on click, what do you want to do? I want to pretty much just make this concatenate to the output with the odd numbers, right? First 100 odd numbers. Now, in the test, you want to focus on one thing, the scope, right? Scope of what a variable. Like for example, int I, like scope of variables is only valid inside the curly braces, right? Now this is only, they don't know what is this, right? They don't know. Variable output is accessed from within inner class. This whole thing is called an inner class. Like this is an inner class, okay? And that, like this is an inner class. Just like when you create a new object, like scanner keyboard equal to new scanner. This is like you create a new object, so that's why this is an inner class. Okay. So remember, the scope of the variables cannot be accessed in different classes. So to make it accessible, you need to put a final keyword. Right. Final keyword, right? So, but let's see when they want that. If I put just final, can I assign a value to final output? So it want me to change it to an array. We were talking about array, right? A group of, right, data that had the same type, and you refer to at index 0. Alright, so now let's try again now. So we're just going to rerun the application. Alright, it's empty. So it looks like we display outside. That's why it didn't do any action. When I click, it never display, because it depends on the click, right? So I want to display right here, right? So the same display is the scope. We have to make it final again, then it's accessible, right? All right, so we probably need to refresh. Let me try to see if I can just refresh view. With this button. Pretty much the same, I think. That's just do it, right? There you go. We technically can make a clear button, but let's just clear this out, right? So you can technically write a program for calculator now. Any questions? Like this point in 201, you learn more about what is this in more details. This at this point, you just need to know this is just like if clause to make it true. When you click, you do it right inside. That's it, right? And with just memorize this code, right? For now, to make an action happen.
Are you going to talk about the last part of the class exercise?
The diamond.
Oh, the diamond. Okay. So now for even number, you pretty much know how to do it. So we're gonna talk about draw a diamond shape. So when you how would you draw it first, right? So technically, you just want to print an asterisk and print space space asterisk space and then no space, right? So this is the hard part about this is about logic. Just like how to print an odd number, you think a little bit. How to do Fibonacci, you think a little bit, right? This is, you just have to think more than a little bit. How you put the logic together to print this out. So to start out, you should make it simple first. Okay, I'm gonna print one asterisk. Now I'm gonna print like triangle shape first before the diamond shape. And you're going to have to print a space every time. You have to write a loop. So let's say I'm going to add another button. So technically, I could just copy this if I just do it from the code, right? It's the same thing as you drag and drop and paste and just change the name accordingly, right? So this is going to be diamond and diamond, right? Button. Where we want to put it, maybe bottom of the odd button, right? So we're done, right? Pretty much very simple and easy, easier than drag and drop. I think, because drag and drop you have to work on the layout again. So now we're ready to use that button here, right? So same thing, pretty much just do this, right? But the button is, right, we find view by ID, right? The diamond button. Now, the same thing. The diamond button dot, but set on click listener new view dot on click listener, and you have to implement the methods on click. That's it. Now you put the logic in there, right? That should be simple with IntelliJ, right? So just do Alt enter, fix the problem, add the implemented method for you. So how do you print? So technically we're going to rely on the output again, right? So if I print the asterisk, I just do that, correct? How many asterisks you need? Let's use 4 this time. Int I equal to 0. I and I less than. It depends on how many I you want. So if you want 5, I less than 5. Now you have to think about rows and columns for this one. Now if I do this, I just dealing with rows, right? So it's only one loop. You probably need nested loop like, or multiple loops inside each other, right? more than one loop, because this loop just control what I can just say row, right, to make it represent the row. All right. So, and then row plus plus. So let's say it's gonna print that for me first. Just you have to pretty much just do trial and error a little bit with your logic before you move on further, like test small code to make sure it works before. I never set the text, so it did, but never change the text, right? All right, so let's see, refresh it. Now there you go, right? So we have one row, but we want to do with columns, so stack on the top. So pretty much you want to, after you print a row, you can do another 4, say, column. How many columns? I mean, how many rows? 5. Actually, this should be column, right? Yeah, this should be column, right? Because it's horizontally, right? Print. Like if you see a 5 column, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? But I want to do rows now, right? So row. So let's see how many rows do we need. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 rows, right? Row less than 5. Row plus plus. So it's going to print this, right? Once it print one column, I want it to go a new line. So output has to be concatenated with the escape sequence for new line, which is, so it should print the new row, right? For 5 times. All right, so this one pretty much just create a rectangle, right? Correct?
Yeah.
Like 5 by 5. Like that, right? Now, the next thing is, I need to actually, instead of asterisk, I just want to replace with space instead of asterisk, correct? If it is the first row, so you have to think about logic now, right? You have to use if else to help. The third row, you're not going to add spaces. The first row, you're going to actually print space, space, asterisk. So what type of logic we want to put? So this is dealing with what? Columns, right? So pretty much that logic has to be inside the second for loop. This is called nested loop, right? So if column equal to 0 and row equals to 0, you want to print space space, asterisk and space space. Or we want to design this program more flexible, like instead of, like for example, instead of first 100 numbers, I can just put a text field. I put 5, it's going to print the first 5. I hit diamond, it's going to print 5 rows. Right, the diamond with 5 rows. If I put 10, it's going to print a bigger shape of diamond with 10 rows. So we want to make sure you decide this more, right? flexible in that case. You don't want to hard code it like this number. It's not good. Or this number, right? So let's say, for example, we're gonna do that route then. But before we do that route, let's think about how we're gonna make this shape with 5 first. But make sure when you design, just make sure you're going to support that route. Like it could be n instead of 5, right? Any n rows. So we want to print space space and then asterisk. But the only one that we want to print is the middle one. And the rest pretty much just reduce the space, right? Like this is only 1 space, this is 2 spaces. It's going to be 3 spaces and so on, right? So how do we do that? Let's think about logic first. If how many rows do we have? 5, right? But the row number 3, we don't need to add spaces. How do we do that? Just that logic first. Row number 3, pretty much what? The middle, right? So if what is row when I do 5 divided by 2, what do I get?
You get 2. So it's again, it's going to run down.
So that's going to be the middle row, right?
Well, the middle row would be 3.
0, 1, 2.
2.
Right. Okay. Now, for now, I'm going to define everything into the n term. Int n equals to 5. Then I can replace n later, right? If row equivalent to n divided by 2, what do we do? We print out the asterisk. So if I run this program, it's pretty much just going to do 1 row, right? Now, how about else? If row is equals to, pretty much not equivalent to that, then we're going to, so it is row 0. We technically want
2 spaces and asterisk and 2 spaces.
okay, how do we do that? How do we print space space? We technically want to print space space, right? Like if let's say we're going to print space space. So output, how do we print spaces? Pretty much just put spaces like that. Where do you want to print spaces? Right there with column, but the middle column we don't want to, right? In the middle column we don't want, we want the asterisk. So we probably want to put a something to check. So can we print like half like this shape? Can we just print this shape like this guy, the triangle with a space? I'm talking about that triangle in the top left corner. We should, right? So how do we print that shapes only? Loop again. We can loop it again. I mean, that's just some thought. Or if I want to print just this, if column not, so we want to print space when column equals to what? Or column is less than so what's depending on? Is it depending on row or column? If row less than row less than 2, you said, right?
Yeah.
So if row less than 2, we print space. How about column? So if row less than 2, we try to print space. And then we want to print diamond. So when row 0, we are print space, right? So let's look at Excel. Maybe it can demonstrate this logic. Like I said, this is the tricky part. It's just your logic. So this exercise pretty much just help exercising your logic. So we say space. Let's say this is row 0. Okay, space. When would it? It's technically gonna print space. Actually, this by this logic, it's gonna print space. And then what? Asterisk. Right? You read this, right? For row 0, right? That's for first time. Which is, this is not what we want though, right? It's gonna do like this. And this is for column 0. And then column 1, right? By reading this code, right? Space and then asterisk. It's gonna do that actually 5 times. By this logic, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I'll let you guys go back and think about that then. And if you watch some of the videos that I have, I already provide some logic on that too. Okay, but this is just introducing. At least you have to think about that. Okay.